It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obi-Uchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show today. Yes, there's a lot still happening around the country. Politics is heavy. More candidates are declaring. Still so many rumors about who is left to join the race. This past week, the biggest conversation, of course, was on the prize for nomination forms across parties. And the APC, of course, made the headlines the most, considering how much candidates have been told to pay for expression of interests and, of course, nomination forms. It's got a lot of people talking, wondering how this is going to play out when candidates win and what that entails for the fight against corruption. We're going to be delving into that as we start the show today, and I have here with me Demola Olanrewaju, who's a political strategist and member of the PDP. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much, Ebuka. It's been a pleasure to be here.
So, I mean, a lot has been said over the week. There were a lot of jokes even about, whether we're not going to move the fight from not too young to run to not too poor to run because of the sort of figures we have seen. PDP, for a lot of people at this point, seems to be the lesser of the evil because of the fact that maybe the prizes that we've seen with the PDP is significantly lower than the APC, but it still doesn't necessarily make it approachable for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on the pricing of nomination forms? Do you think it's a healthy way? We've heard that it's a way for parties to raise money. Is that really what it is? And what does it say about when these guys get back into office? Because we all know how much their salaries are supposed to be when they get into office, right?
Yes. For me, I think it's basically a reflection of the economy. Things are expensive for men, things are expensive for women, they're expensive for young people, and it's also expensive for political parties. The PDP, of course, is trying to ameliorate it in a way by not going as exorbitantly as it could as a major political party, and that's why you have the presidential pegged at 40 million. And then, as you come lower, it's also comparatively lower than that of the other major political party. House of Assembly, for instance, is 600,000 naira. That's what you're expected to pay. So that's still within the reach of a lot of young people who have an aspiration. But, the 40 million is just a reflection of the economy. The party, things are expensive in terms of the logistics of organizing convention, in terms of, the logistics of moving people around and actually organizing for the presidential aspirant. So it's a reflection of the economy, and PDP is doing its best to manage that. Of course, you have to wonder why 100 million naira in the APC. I'll just say that, APC is being affected by APC's handling of the economy itself.
One thing I think a lot of people have wondered, why sell forms in the first place? Why are we paying for forms? What does that do? What does that mean?
Well, I think it's, you have to, there's a certain level of commitment that's expected from you as an aspirant, and that's what it means when you buy forms. Of course, a lot of the charges goes to, you have delegates to organize. You're bringing delegates from all over the country. You'll be taking them to a particular location to vote, and these things cost money. With the IBB transition in 1993, it was basically government funded. Government was providing the venues for the political parties, but now there's no party doesn't have money for those kind of things. So it's basically these monies that are being used to do those kind of things, and the bigger the party, the more the number of delegates that are expected, and the more the logistics you have to put into it. So that's really what it is. But having said that, I, of course, don't understand the rationale behind going as high as 100 million. Some have said it's a sort of barrier, to put a barrier and not make it an all-comers affair. For us, we have about 15 aspirants already, people who have picked the forms at 40 million naira, and that shows that, well, it's still, within the reach of some people in the society. But basically, the funds are used for the logistics handling of the entire presidential conventions.
All right. I mean, we can see some of the graphics on the screen now just to show us what this different seats cost. For both parties. But we're going to go to Abuja now. We're joined by Rinsola Abiola, who's a youth and gender advocate and a member of the APC. Rinsola, thanks for joining us. And I think, do just to get your perspective on things, because it's been quite surprising for a lot of people, and a lot of people have called out Mr. President in particular, who was at the meeting where this decision was made, especially because in 2015 it was very public knowledge how he talked about having to get a loan or whatever it was to be able to afford the presidential ticket nomination, I beg your pardon. 8 years down the line, he's endorsing 100 million naira for the same ticket. How does that get justified?
Okay, so I would say that I listened to Demola's comment earlier talking about economic factors and all of that, but I would want everyone to recall the fact that in 2015, I believe the cost of the nomination form in the APC was higher than that of the PDPs, and I believe that was a function of where both parties were at that time. And presently, we cannot compare where the APC is with where the PDP is in terms of people who want to vie for the party and the standing of each party when it comes to the ability to actually win the election. So I think, yes, it's simple economics, but not in the way that Demola puts it. It's a matter of demand and supply. We have more people trying to vie for this office on the platform of the APC. And we also know that the party is much stronger and much better positioned to actually win the presidency come 2023. Also, parties are funded through the proceeds of from nomination forms, like when we had during the convention and now that the general elections are coming around. And definitely parties need funding to be able to get their job done. They need funding to be able to get their work done. And I think one thing I'm particularly happy about is the fact that young people and women have been granted concessions when it comes to buying nominations when it comes to buying nomination forms. For women, all we have to pay is the cost of the expression of interest, and the nomination form is free. And for young people, our national youth leader has been able to secure a 50% discount for all aspirants under 35. So those two constituencies have been taken care of, and you know, it's part of the party's efforts to ensure that the forms are largely more accessible to people in underrepresented groups.
So I hear you, but I mean, I can also draw a conclusion from what you said about, because there's so many people vying for it, you put the price as high as possible. It almost gives the impression that the highest bidder is the person who's going to get it, right? As against who's most qualified. So who has the most money is going to be the candidate?
Okay, so I'll say this here. I'm a young politician, and I know for a fact that when it comes to elections and when it comes to vying for political office, a lot of aspirants are able to get support. And I think anybody who is qualified to run for president is somebody who should be able to raise the funds that they need, whether it's to get the nomination form or to actually run the campaign. So, for instance, Olanrewaju had somebody tweet almost immediately when the price of the forms was announced that he would be signing a check for his nomination form. And I expect that anybody who is vying for president at this point should also have that kind of structure behind them where they don't actually have to use their own funds. It is not expected that people necessarily have to do everything that politics entails with their personal money. And it's very important that we also, you know, develop that culture of crowdfunding. So a lot of aspirants have people who are backing them. And even if they're not able to buy it with personal funds, it's money that they should be able to raise.
Come back to you. Let me come to you now, Demola, because this has been a talking point for a lot of Nigerians, you know. We've had issues of godfatherism for a very long time. And I'm hearing now that, I think the APC youth leader, or women leader, I believe, had said in a program not too long ago, referring to Davido, saying, if he was able to raise 200 million naira in less than 48 hours, nobody should complain, or young people should be able to do that. Which is weird, because Davido is Davido. Not everybody has that sort of clout. But my point is, if we are going to say, okay, anybody should be able to raise that kind of money if you're going to want to run for office. We're hearing that the Electoral Act has even raised the bar of what electoral funding can be. You know, you go into office now, there's obviously debts being owed, which has always been a problem for a lot of people, saying politicians get in there and they have to pay back these debts over 4 or 8 years and literally have nothing to govern with. Are we not making matters worse with all of this?
Well, I think it's basically a reflection of the economy and where the economy is presently. It's expensive for political parties, but political parties still have a responsibility to make sure that they put their best foot forward, and not just in terms of financing, but also in terms of your ability to get the job done. For me, it's not as direct as one would expect, because look, how many people have access to the millions that we are talking about? But then again, you have to be realistic and say, let's make it better for some people, which is what the PDP ended up doing. And I'm happy, that APC also, made concessions as regards women and young people, which the PDP also did at that time. But a number of people are also running on the PDP platform, which shows that basically the 40 million is expected that, at a certain point in your life, if you are running for president, then you should be able to do that. But I think, for me, it's a reflection of the economy. Things have become more expensive. What it says, about the APC is perhaps, they have access to some kind of funds, which runs into hundreds of millions for their, aspirants to be able to come out in that way. But I'm sure, a lot of Nigerians are looking to see, who is able to pick these things, because people are going to, everyone will say, oh, it's not coming from me, it's being crowdfunded by people. But then that also comes back to what you were saying about godfatherism. If people are buying the tickets on your behalf, that means that you might perhaps be more beholden to those people than to the people, than to the vote to the electorate. So if you are saying a House of Rep member is going to be paid 20 million in the APC, I believe, about 40 million in the APC, which is what, the presidential is costing here, that person might have to run to a godfather. So I think, it promotes godfatherism. The best thing to do in that situation is to understand that, yes, things are more expensive even for political parties, but we don't want the polity to become, to be held hostage by godfathers. So you take a middle ground, which I think, is what the PDP has done.
Yeah. Let's leave the funding for a bit and just talk candidates now and talk about the PDP. There's been a lot of drama, about zoning. It has probably been the most talked about thing with regards to the people declaring and what the party wants to do. I think it was even yesterday I saw the governor of Sokoto State said he's stepping out of the Northern Coalition because no agreement has been reached. So even sectionally, there doesn't seem to be any agreement. For an opposition that's trying to get back into power, it doesn't look like the house is in order.
Well, I mean, it always looks like that from the outside in politics, but, politics is an engagement of conflict. I want to be president, Ebuka wants to be president, Rinsola also wants to be president. And, it's an engagement of conflict, basically. We all have those individual aspirations. But what PDP has proven over time is that it has always been able to manage conflicts and manage interest. The last time around, too, 2019, people felt, the party was going to be torn apart, but that did not happen eventually because we would always come to a round table eventually. So I think that's also going to happen in 2023, and I think it's a sign of a healthy party. You have to have people vying in that direction. Yeah. As for zoning, there are a lot of tendencies within the party, but I believe at the end of the day, the most important thing is for somebody who can, somebody who will be able to challenge the APC and also provide solutions for the various problems facing Nigeria. I think that's the most important question that PDP needs to answer at this point.
Rinsola, same question to you, because the APC is not any better. Even with the price of nomination forms, we did see some members of the APC, some very vocal members, speak up against, what it costs. But talking about candidates, especially at the presidential level, we've seen very, very interesting declarations. Of course, most visible, of course, is Mr. Vice President and Ashiwaju, like you said, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who everybody has known to be allies, for want of a better word, seem to be running against each other at this point. How is the party looking? Because you want to hold on to power, like you've said, but things are not particularly looking great either.
First off, I would like to speak regarding a point Demola made earlier, talking about the fact that the cost of nomination forms would allow or would further godfatherism. And I think it's very key that we understand the fact that for you to vie for an office like the presidency, you must have built a network. And in advanced democracies, campaigns are crowdfunded right from the beginning till the very end. So it's not necessary, really, that the money that you use to get your form has to be personal funds. That's why I said earlier that there should be people rallying around you. I've run for office both within the party and at the general election, and both times I had people rally around me. I'm a young politician. I don't have a godfather. I'm not a godfather. So I think it's very important to correct that notion. Then regarding the question about our presidential aspirants. Asiwaju has a wonderful track record, former governor of Lagos State, national leader of the party. Prof has done his role well as vice president to the President Muhammadu Buhari. We have quite a number of other people who have declared and others who have not declared yet, but whom we're expecting to come forward. And it's a normal thing in a democracy. The very nature of democracy calls for contest. And we'll get to the primaries, our delegates will vote, and whoever it is that emerges will enjoy support from all the different groups within the party. We had a lot of aspirants also for our convention. There was a lot of talk about how it might tear the party apart, but we were able to come and come together, to fall back together, and the party is forging ahead as one. So I believe the same thing will play out at the primaries. We've already decided that we'll be having the indirect primaries. There are statutory delegates, some new delegates will emerge. At the end of the day, the delegates will speak, with their votes, they will speak through the ballot, and a presidential candidate will emerge. And I am very hopeful, contrary to what you said earlier about, whether the party is well placed to win the elections. I actually believe, I don't see anyone in the PDP at the moment that I think can give us a run for our money. So I'm actually quite confident that come 2023, Nigerians will return to the APC for the presidency and for a lot of positions also at the national and state levels.
The fact that across board, even not just with the APC now, we still don't seem to be making inroads with regards to women in politics. I'm looking at state elections, I'm looking at the federal. There's still nobody who jumps out at us. Why is that still happening? Why are we not there yet?
So I've done a lot of work in the gender space, both within the political system and in civil society. And one thing I will say is that we have a number of hurdles that we need to cross. So recently, the Federal High Court, the Federal High Court ruled that 35% affirmative action for women has to be abided by for appointed positions. And I think that's a huge landmark in Nigeria's democratic history. So for appointed positions going forward, and I'm quite hopeful that, we begin to abide by it when appointments are made. Now, when it comes to elective positions, we have a number of barriers in the paths of women. As I stated earlier, I've run. So there are internal party factors, horse trading and all of that sometimes that may not favor youth and women candidates, aspirants, that prevent them from emerging eventually. Also, we have the issue of societal factors in a couple of places where no matter how qualified a woman might be, people just will not support a female candidate for any position. And these are the issues that we need to deal with. The Honorable Minister for Women Affairs has done quite well during this tenure. We have female deputy local government officials. She's done a lot of work with getting women better represented in governance at the grassroots level. We need enabling policies at party level. Parties have done well by saying, we are granting concessions to our women. The APC has done excellently well by saying women only have to pay for the expression of interest form, but that the nomination form will be free. But I think beyond just granting these concessions on the cost of nomination forms, we also need to have enabling policies that will ensure that women emerge as candidates. So the same way the courts have secured representation for women, with 35% affirmative action in appointed positions, I don't see any reason why our political parties cannot put their money where their mouth is when it comes to women's issues, by actually saying a certain percentage of our tickets will go to women aspirants. There is no dearth of qualified women in any corner of this country. And I believe if our parties are actually really serious about ensuring that women are better represented, especially when it comes to elective positions, then they will do the needful.
Okay. Very final word now from Demola. The PDP has lost 2 elections in a row at the federal level. What is going to happen differently this time?
Well, I think 2023 is a different election because, the record of the All Progressive Congress in every sphere of the economy of life of Nigeria is quite obvious. PDP is not counting on that alone. The PDP is working aggressively and putting its best foot forward, basically, to ensure that we have a candidate who is able to campaign across the entire length and breadth of Nigeria and win. For young people, I think, they would have to look at the ASU strike currently ongoing and make their decision whether the APC is a better party for them to go with. And I think, no Nigerian is going to answer that in the affirmative. Also for women, as regards what Rinsola just mentioned, I'm happy to say that the People's Democratic Party has it enshrined in its constitution that, 35% of appointive and elective offices should be reserved for women. And so women are also a part of the base that we are appealing to in this forthcoming election. But I think, 2023 is going to be, it's a major crossroads for Nigerians. We should not focus just on the politics, but focus on the issues. It's sad that, zoning is the biggest issue presently, and I think it's a reflection of how APC has managed to divide the country so far. And that's why people are talking about zoning, whether it's coming to the south or staying in the north. Let us get back to the issues of the economy, the issues of education, the issues of the future of Nigeria itself. I think that is what's on the ballot in 2023.
Thank you very much, Demola. Thank you very much, Rinsola. Pretty confident from both of you, believing that you both will be taking the presidency in 2023. We'll definitely have you back a lot more over the course of the months to come. Thanks for joining us today. We'll take a quick break now and be right back. Please don't go away.